If you would, please go ahead and take your seat. We'll be calling the meeting to order here momentarily. You ready? You ready? Okay, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is the City of Canton Council meeting, October the 18th, 2018. If you would, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation. Bishop Gehring will give our invocation this morning. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
From Georgia to Alabama to Florida to Arkansas, the cry still remains the same. Help and save our children. Help and save our community. We ask God that you will enable our city council, our mayor, and our law enforcement to continue to do their best to bring about change in our community for the betterment of our children and our senior citizens. Bless the city of Canton, uphold our officers, uphold our leaders. In Jesus' name, amen.
I'd like to welcome all of our guests and visitors here tonight, and we will begin with employee recognitions. Chief Mitchell.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and City Manager. If I can have Sergeant Ben Gilliland, Officer Adam Yurkovsky, and Lieutenant Rodney Campbell step forward, please. Face audience. Several achievements from these officers over the past couple of months and things that they've been working on and achieved for very good performance. First, Sergeant Ben Gilliland. I would like to, as of last Friday, October 12th, marks 20 years Sergeant Gilliland has served with the police department. In fact, Sergeant Gilliland has been in the law enforcement profession, I think, nearly 30 years now, coming up. The sergeant is one of our senior supervisors and does an excellent job. His employees or officers that serve under him extremely enjoy working with him and his guidance. And he is one of the, one of the steady supervisors in our department. And again, I'd like to thank him for 20 years of service with the City of Canton. Officer Adam Yurkovsky, he is our employee of the quarter. Officer Yurkovsky was selected by his supervisors, or all supervisors, and our command staff for being the employee of the quarter for July, August, and September of this year. He consistently performs at a high level and excels as one of our department's field training officers as he teaches younger officers skills and knowledge and things that they need out here on patrol. He does an excellent job of professionally representing the police department and the community to the community we serve. Lieutenant Rodney Campbell. Lieutenant Campbell, we believe in training, a lot of good training for our department and our officers and our supervisors, professional training for further career development. Lieutenant Campbell just recently completed a 6-month college course through the Northwest School of Police Staff and Command. This is challenging training officers, leaders, and managers in senior positions through training such as budgeting, employee relations, the executive image, human resource, leadership management, media relations, project management, resource allocation, and contemporary policing, making decisions, problem solving, among other things. I'd like to commend him also for the completion. It was a very tough course from what I understand, but he excelled and did a great job. Lieutenant Campbell does also professionally represent the city of Canton, the police department, to our community, and does a great job as one of our harder working supervisors. So I'd like to commend each one of these gentlemen for these achievements, and then I've got an award to give several of them. Lieutenant Campbell, his diploma just came in, and we'll be reframing that for him, but I wanted to issue a couple of plaques to these officers. I'm going to flip around the other side and give you a crime report. As you know, each month we come before council in reference to our crime report for the previous month, and this month the report will be for September. And then we have the uniform crime report, our statistics also for September. I passed those out. You can see before you that we had our officers answered 1,935 calls for service, 95 arrests, 40 CID, assigned 44 cases, and you can see through the traffic citations, warnings, and contacts, a total of 416 contacts with motorists. Criminal activity, shoplifting is again our highest crime that we have responded to this month. If you notice, it says 14 cases bottom line. This is down from 28 in the month of August. And I really think it has to do with our work and our relationship that we have with the loss prevention and the work and processes and things that many of our stores have implemented because of our meetings. I want to say that now, but hopefully it'll continue to decline or be down from where it was in months past this coming month for October. Currently, we just had a mid-month review for October, and we're down as well. So hopefully that will continue. Had several theft by taking cases, as you can see, I think 8 that were reported. Accidents, answered 73 accidents. We have been down accident-wise since August and September. We would like to think that in looking at it, potentially could be the hands-free, as it has been down across the state, if you've heard several news reports. And we think it's no different for our city as well, that activity, as far as our accidents, have been down. Also like to attribute that to our Special Operations Division for their selective traffic enforcement efforts, which had 2 of those last month in areas that we have that are most crashes and our accidents. Our officers also get that data every month and focus patrol strategies on those areas as well, also along with our crime. Last page, community events. You see we have Reading with the Cops. Citizens Police Academy started this past Tuesday night. It's our largest class. We have 18 members of the community in there. We've been averaging 6 or 8, so it's growing. So we've got 18 members of our community in that class, and that will be going through December the 11th. Police in the Park is this Police in the Park 5K is this Saturday morning, 9 o'clock at Etowah Park. And then we'll be joining the Fun and Safety Day here in Brown Park. We'll have a booth there, and our officers will be out there as well. And then you see cases. Last thing is the uniform crime report for the month. And overall, we're down crime-wise, and we're around just a little over 7%. Crime-wise, it looks across the board we're down, and then other things you see listed there, and then our total contacts as far as traffic and our arrests and our calls for service. Any questions on the UCR or crime report?
Chief, I was just looking at the number of DUI arrests were up quite significantly, 22. Is there anything, I mean, is it just more patrols, or is there something
Well,
like
it's more
football
patrol-
season started?
It's more patrols, and we have a young workforce, and a lot of our officers are getting the experience, and knowledge, and getting out here and getting the confidence, and I think that's the reason that has gone up from where it was previous, and also some areas that we focused on: crashes, vehicle crashes. Our officers have been in those areas, and several of the DUIs have come from crashes, where we've made charges in reference to DUI accidents.
Anyone else? Question?
The last thing I have is as far as community outreach, we're going to try something new in November. I don't know if it's been done before, but we're going to do a Facebook Live community town hall, kind of a question and answer through Facebook. So we'll be promoting that coming up. We'll see how it works. But just kind of a new venture in law enforcement that we've come up with. So we're going to try that, and that'll be on November the 19th. So probably during the evening.
Sounds good.
Thank you,
Chief, very much. Good report. Okay, next item. Consideration to approve the agenda. Does anyone have anything to add to or amend the agenda? If not, I entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented. So moved. That motion, Mr. Yon made the motion. Mr. Goodwin seconded the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Okay, all members voting for the motion. Okay. You have in your agenda package the council meeting draft minutes from October the 4th, and also the public hearing committee meeting draft minutes. Are there any changes or corrections to be made to those? If not, do I have a motion to approve those minutes as presented?
Second.
Okay. Ms. McGrew made the motion. Mr. Young seconded that motion. Any other discussion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. Okay. All right, our 10-minute public input period. We have a couple of individuals like to speak. Mr. Weaver.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Thomas Weaver, and I reside at 131 Old Marietta Road here in Canton, Georgia. I would like to announce publicly and recite again my sincere and stalwart opposition to a matter that's pending before you this evening as an action item. I reached out to each of you via email. I hope that you received it, and in that email I included an attached letter that I hope that you have read. Under the item of old business, 8D of the agenda, you will be asked, and I do anticipate the city manager asking you based on the city's manager's administrative recommendation to approve a modification to the 2006 Consolidated Fire Services Agreement. And I ask again and recite on second occasion, as I did earlier this month, that you please approach with sincere and grave trepidation and look out for your constituents' best interest in this matter. And I respectfully ask that you decline to amend the Consolidated Service Agreement, and I ask that you hold Cherokee County accountable to the fire station that it promised you when you chose to consolidate your fire services with the Cherokee County government. Also, I would like to say to Ms. Stewart before she departs that I think that you've been a great city clerk, and I'm sad to see you go. But I know that there's new opportunities for you and your spouse both in South Georgia. So I wish you all the best. You're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver. Lauren Taylor.
Good
Good evening. I'm Lauren Taylor. I'm a junior at Cherokee High School and a student leader of Students Demand Action in Cherokee County. Tonight, I'd like to inform the City Council and our city's residents of a pressing statewide political issue relevant to the upcoming election. Gubernatorial candidate and current Secretary of State Brian Kemp has suspended more than 50,000 applications to register to vote. The health of our democracy and the integrity of our values depends on elections that are fought on an even playing field, and when one of the teams is also the referee, it's imperative that the plays that are made are 100% transparent and fair. Nearly 70% of the registrations that have been frozen are those of African Americans, according to the Associated Press. Black and minority voters who are affected disproportionately by gun violence deserve an equal voice in Georgian elections. Black Americans represent the majority of gun homicide victims. In fact, Black Americans are 10 times more likely than white Americans to die by gun homicide, according to the CDC fatal injury reports from 2012 to 2016. The disenfranchisement of African American voters is a sharp reminder of election suppression in Cherokee County that had appeared solved after integration. Cherokee County's painful history with racial suppression makes this issue something that we need to hold at the forefront of our minds. From the incident in 1964 when the Canton Theater, less than 2 blocks from here, tried to integrate and resulted in the assaults of 4 young black men, to the incident in 2002 when students from my own school came to school wearing clothing with Confederate battle flags to intimidate African American students, to the fight that we must fight now for the right of our black voters in our county to show up at the polls and have their ballots counted. Cherokee County should not be a place that residents are afraid or unsure about the practice of their rights. So today I urge and ask you all to reach out to our Secretary of State, Brian Kemp, and regardless of your political stance, ask him to do what's right and guarantee a free and fair election by reinstating the voter status of the 50,000 applicants that they wrongly suspended. This October, vote. Vote for those who don't care about politics. Vote for your children whose lives depend on it. Vote for the brave men and women who laid down their lives to give you the ability to choose your leader with your words and not with a right. Vote for the people living across our state whose governments fail to act on the firearm violence epidemic they suffer from every week, every day, every hour for their entire lives. Vote for those who can't because of foul play. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Moving along with the agenda. We have a consent agenda here. Then I will read those items, and if anyone would like to pull any one of these off for further discussion, we can do so. Item 7A, discussion of possible action of street closure for the Veterans Day Parade on November the 10th. That should be actually just action approving. Also approving the action of approving agreement between Chattahoochee Tech College and Canton Police Department to provide law enforcement services upon request for emergency or special circumstances. Item C, discussion action of street acceptance for the streets in Laurel Canyon Pod 5 Longleaf Phase 2 and 3. And D, discussion and possible action of request for extension or for submission of a service delivery strategy to the Georgia Department of Community Affairs. All these items are those that we have discussed fairly in detail over the past, but if anyone would like to pull any of those off for further discussion, let me know. Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Second. Mr. Goodwin made the motion. Mr. Estes seconded that motion. Any other discussion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. Okay. Under old business, item A. Item 8A and 8B are the request from the developer of the apartments at the Riverstone Drive and Reinhardt College Boulevard, or Parkway, I guess it is. The rezoning for that, or that is actually a master plan amendment, and then item B is the conditional use permit. And so the applicant has made a request that these two items, and I think they could be considered together, be tabled until the November the 1st City Council work session. Do you have something to add to that, Mr.?
No, sir, Mr. Mayor. They requested this items to be tabled as they're working on providing additional information to council that council requested at the last meeting in regards to traffic impacts and traffic counts and things of that nature.
Okay. Does anyone have any comments regarding the request to table this until November the 1st? Okay. Do I have a motion that we table these items 8A and 8B until November the 1st?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Goodwin made the motion. Mr. Yon seconded that motion. Any other discussion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. It will be tabled, and this will come up. This will come up for discussion only on the November the 1st. Then it will be placed on the November the 15th agenda for action. Okay? All right, item C, discussion and possible action of public hearing process for planning and zoning cases. Mr. Brew.
Thank you. On October 10th, the committee of Mr. Yon, Ms. Wilson, myself met here. Mr. Peppers joined us, Mr. Patton, Mr. Dyer, and others. We talked for over an hour about the process to have more than one public hearing added concerning planning and zoning. We came to a wonderful compromise after much discussion of having one public hearing before our work session. This would include the site plan specific presentation by a developer. It would be on the agenda with the agenda item. We would have, say, go to item 7A, planning and zoning. We would open the public hearing at that item, keep the public hearing open during discussion of the item so that we could have conversation back and forth. And when we finished discussing the item, we would close the public hearing. That would be at the work session only, not at the voting meeting. For public input time, we would keep it the same time as the Planning and Zoning Board. We're asking the staff to be able to approve certain changes to a site plan without having to come before council. And Mr. Dyer and Mr. Patton will determine those changes that are best made by staff. We have an ordinance now that adds the extra public hearing to our work session, and we can proceed with that tonight if we wish. But there are some issues that have come up with Mr. Patton and Mr. Dyer's conversations, and I'd like for Mr. Patton to address those for you.
Mr. Mayor, council members, the committee, in that meeting, there were discussions about the additional public hearings. There were discussions about requirements related to the site plan and as to whether the rezone site plan or zoning ordinance would have language that all rezonings would be site plan specific. Mr. Dyer and I have been having discussions off and on since the committee meeting. It's a little more complicated, if you will, than just adding some language that the approval would be site plan specific. Mr. Dyer and I are working on some ordinance language relative to the site plan so that we could bring that back to City Council at a later date, or if council wishes to hold off on the amendment to add the public hearing so that it can incorporate the recommended site plan changes. It can go either way, but Mr. Dyer and I still have some work to do on the site plan portion of the committee recommendation.
How would the ordinance work if we proceed with it tonight to add the extra public hearing? Would we then again amend the ordinance to include the information about being site plan specific?
Yes, it would require an additional amendment. The Unified Development Code is a living, breathing document, if you will.
Right.
And we have some other potential amendments to the Unified Development Code that the staff has not had a chance to present to City Council. We just adopted numerous amendments a couple of months ago. How this would work is if we move forward with advertising for the specific amendment to add the additional public hearing, we would advertise that. It would go to the Planning Commission in November, come to City Council in December, would be effective with the additional public hearing beginning with the January council meetings. The site plan change would follow at some point after then. Any application that were submitted until the amendment that affected site plans would come under the current guidelines that's contained within the ordinance and our public hearing application package. It would be a time lag, if you will, to the site plan amendments from adding the second public hearing. I don't really see that big of an issue with it, but the decision ultimately is with council which way you would want to proceed.
I'm
Mr.
comforted
Dyer?
to hear that you don't see a problem with it, a huge issue with proceeding.
I don't really have anything. I don't have anything to add other than I agree that you should move forward with the hearing, adding the additional hearing, because that's, you want to put that in place as soon as possible.
Okay. So would we have a motion to proceed with the process through the Planning Commission? For the extra public hearing at our work session?
Correct.
Okay. So do we have that motion?
We have that motion.
Okay. Do we have a second? Okay, Ms. McGrew made the motion. Mr. Young seconded that motion. Is there any other discussion? This gets the ball rolling here by doing that. Okay. If not, I'll entertain we got the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right. Next item, discussion and possible action of Cherokee County request to amend fire service consolidation agreement related to Bluffs property. Mr. Peppers?
You had asked some questions at the last meeting about this, and I sent an email to Mr. Cooper, and I forwarded you responses that he had sent to us. At this point, they do not have any property specifically laid out on the county property that exists on the bluffs for that future station. They haven't surveyed anything out. Ms. Stewart and I received a visit earlier this week from the school board attorney because he wanted a copy of the agreement as well. And I had some conversation with him that the school district does have plans to build some type of building on that site, but he alluded to the fact that he didn't think it was a construction project that would occur anytime soon. It was just that they wanted to secure that 4.4 acres that's adjacent to them. And really, I don't have any further information on that project.
Okay. Mr. Estes?
I don't know if it's necessarily my place, but I'll just say it. My concern with this would be that with our school systems being overcrowded as they are today, I absolutely don't see it necessary for the administrative buildings to be prioritized in the budgets of the school district. So it would be my position that we not move forward with this and kind of go on the record there for our citizens that I've heard a lot of feedback from with their disappointment that the school board would even consider this at this time.
Would that be-
regardless of
I'm
when
sorry.
they're,
Would that be a motion?
that is a motion, yes.
We have a motion. Ms. McGrew seconded Mr. Estes' motion. Is there any other questions or discussion regarding this? The motion is that we deny the request of the county to amend the fire services consolidation agreement. And see, they're wanting that 4.4, 4.5 acres there on the reservoir to exchange with the Board of Education for some property out near 369, 372, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong here. But, I mean, we had an agreement that we felt was very, very balanced. And if we did this agreement, we'd be giving them more than we had intended to do initially than the agreement called for. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion or questions? Okay. Mr.
I
Young.
would just state, too, that one of my main concerns is they're asking us to give up this, and it would unbalance the agreement, and they're not offering anything comparable in return for this. So the city's giving up something and getting nothing, and I don't like that. So that's my main objection to this.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. If not, those in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. Thank you. City Manager's report.
Yes, sir. I wanted to start off with an update on sanitation. As you recall, we were working through getting more accurate numbers on our recycling citywide. We believe that our recycling customers are about 3,000 residential accounts, far more than the some 2,000 accounts that our previous hauler had recognized in their record keeping. To date, we have about a dozen customers in the city that are still awaiting their 95-gallon garbage can. Most of those customers are related to individuals that were either out of town during a transition and so those are being serviced by the end of this week. We have about 80 customers that have requested totes, the 18-gallon totes. We're currently out of those, and we're working to get those in as quickly as possible. And we have about 800 customers that are awaiting the 65-gallon totes. Those totes are in production. We're giving everyone the date of mid-November. That was that 4 to 6 week period that they thought that they needed for a lead time, but it may be earlier than that based on the number that we've ordered. It may be that we can get it a little bit faster. So our hope is that we'll be able to have all of those serviced. What we have done in the interim is ask the customer if they would like the 18-gallon tote until we can get the 65-gallon tote or the 65-gallon cart. We have seen an uptick in individuals utilizing the Ridge Road site during the interim time, and so that's been good as well. Our glass recycling is up at Ridge Road. There was some question from some residents. In the past, our former vendor had told us that on recycling of glass that we would have to do that through individual streams for varied colors of glass. So, for instance, blue glass was in one recycling bin, clear was in one, and I believe brown and green might have been in the other. With the current vendor, we can do single stream recycling of glass, so they don't have to separate it. They can bring it and dump it all at the same time. So that's kind of where we are on that update. Number of phone calls that we receive are decreasing every day, so that's a good sign. Backdoor service continues to be a little bit of an issue. Again, some of that is from just bad record keeping that we had, and so if we've had a backdoor service account that's been missed, we've been sending our folks out to recover if we can get to it quickly, if we can get to it faster than the vendor can get. So usually we're able to turn those requests around within the next day. And so we're working through those initial kinks. But like I said, the call volume has come down significantly, and so that's been helpful. Good. The only other thing I wanted to mention tonight, well, first of all, I wanted to to recognize Lou Stewart. She has just been a fantastic city clerk, and I think all of the staff have really enjoyed working with her, and she's going to be missed, but I hope she'll put her toes in the sand and enjoy this next stage of her life. I know that it's going to make our job over the next few months a little bit more difficult, but she's just been fantastic to work with, and I wanted to make sure I recognized her tonight. I did want to note that in the interim, while we're going through the process of reviewing candidates for the full-time position, with the approval of the Personnel Committee that's looking at this, Miss Annie Mullinax, who has been our permitting and licensing clerk for the city, is going to fill in an interim role for us, assisting us with the day-to-day task of the city clerk's office. And then also relay that I do have one request of council. If you'll recall, when this occurred the last time we had a vacancy, I did request from the council the authority for the city manager to sign documents on behalf of the city while we did not have a permanent city clerk in place, and I would ask that that same ability during this transition as well. That's all I have.
Okay. I think maybe, I don't know if we need to vote, but to authorize Billy to sign in for the clerk. Okay. Do we? During the absence. Okay. 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 Mr. McGrew made the motion. Mr. Young seconded the motion. Any other discussion or question? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion.
And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about anything tonight. Any questions from anybody? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I'd certainly like to echo what Billy said about our clerk. Has done a fantastic job for us. And certainly she's going to be missed, I tell you. Another item I have is that I mentioned at the last meeting the possible reappointment of Mr. Bob Riley, and he's here tonight. We appreciate you being here, and we appreciate you accepting that appointment. I don't know how many times Canton Building Authority has actually met in recent times. Not very often, I'm sure. So, but anyway, we need somebody in those positions, and we thank you for being willing to serve there. So, with that being said, I'd like to nominate Bob Riley to serve. Bob is from Great Sky area, and nominate him to serve on the Canton Building Authority. Do we have a second? Okay, Mr. Estes seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no? Yeah, thank you. Ms. McGrew?
Yes, thank you. I wanted to tell the council a little something about the student that spoke. Students at Cherokee High School have become aware of what's going on in the United States. And I'm really very proud of them for becoming civically aware and going to city council meetings and talking at city council meetings. And they're going to be visiting other cities also. And Students Demand Action is a group that is a sister organization to Moms Demand Action, which is part of Everytown USA. And Everytown USA is for responsible, intelligent, and safe gun ownership. The organizations do not in any way want to take anyone's guns away from them. They just want to promote safety and responsibility and common sense. And so these students are very concerned about their safety on campus. So they're going around and talking to adults and helping us understand their concerns and their feelings of not being safe, and wanting those that are old enough to purchase a firearm to be aware that there needs to be a lot of safety regulations in place for us and for them. And I hate that they left, but I'm so very proud of them for coming before this group of adults and speaking so eloquently on a topic that they're passionate about.
Thank you. I couldn't agree more with you. Absolutely. One other item I have, you have at your desk there a copy of a letter that was from the Director of Emergency Management, and Renee Corneliuson. And basically it says, it is our understanding that Cherokee County has applied for a grant from the federal No, I'm sorry, this is a letter that I sent to her because they had requested that we send a letter concurring with the application, and it says, it's our understanding that Cherokee County has applied for a grant from the Federal Emergency Management Agency through the Georgia Emergency Management Agency to fund the cost of updating the county's multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. And it goes on, and it is very beneficial to all our cities that do that. And I have actually sent this letter to in response to this on behalf of the city, because they needed to move forward with this grant application. So I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that. Mr. Peppers, you have something?
I just wanted to mention, I had forgot to mention this in my report. Chief Prather has given us a quarterly fire report for calls and incidents in the cities, and I had just placed that at your seat tonight.
Yeah, I noticed. I thought it was interesting too. Once again, and this is for the third quarter of 2018, and as far as building fires, only one, and that's really something in the fire department. But accidents, no EMS incidents, 762. They had 65 false alarms, but really only one building fire. I mean, that's something in it.
And almost 600 ambulance transports.
Yeah.
Just within the city.
Wow. I wonder, let's see, now does this show the results of the accidents, automobile accidents or anything that they responded to? Or is that included? I don't know, it doesn't separate it out that way, I guess. Okay, no, all right. All righty, well I think this is probably one of the record short meetings that we have, unless someone has something else here. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Ms. McGrew made the motion, Mr. Young seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no.